From Gray, I agree with your earlier emails. If they don't sign Terry, this is a horrible look for a franchise that has established a lot of new goodwill. That's a follow-up to what we got earlier and what I read earlier. Gary01. Kevin, if they let Terry leave, this will be the worst look for the franchise under Josh Harris. From Rob Sheehan, if they don't extend Terry and watch all of the fan goodwill evaporate in seconds. Again, let me emphasize, Terry can't leave. He's under contract. Of course, he could hold out or they could decide to trade him. I think, honestly, big picture here on June 6th, deep breath. We got a long way to go. They don't go to camp for 7 weeks. Terry's last contract extension wasn't signed until June 28th. Terry missed the mandatory minicamp back in June of 2022. Terry is actually in a better position to miss the offseason work than he was back then, as Ben pointed out to us yesterday, because they had a new quarterback back then. It was Carson Wentz. Remember that season? He's played with Jaden. I'm not saying that all of the work doesn't help. But look, I know the time of year. We've, kind of done this together now for a long period of time, and there are no games to talk about. There's no draft to talk about. There's no free agency to talk about. And so right now, this is along with the OTA absences. By the way, to me, Latimore specifically, because that one just is irritating, him not showing up for any OTA days. Now, maybe he will. There are more. But at this point, it appears as if he won't show up for any of them. I think that's a bigger issue than this Terry issue. They traded a bunch of picks for Latimore. They need Latimore to be good. And he has painted the picture for everybody. Not that it has to be true or accurate, but that he is lacking in some self-awareness. 87 of 90 players on the roster have attended these 4 OTA days, and he's one of 3 that haven't. And by the way, Tunsil shouldn't get a free pass. He's new to this organization as well. I think most of you, I would hope most of you, if you're new to a company and there's a voluntary activity in which 87 out of the 90 employees are going to show up, most of whom have been with the company for a while, don't you think it'd be a good idea to show up at least once? Rearrange your schedule, get on a plane, show up. I'm not saying that he's not in shape. He's not working hard. He's not communicating. We heard Joe Witt talk about that. That's a bigger issue to me. And I know it's just an OTA thing, but in terms of concern level, I'm more concerned that Marshawn Latimore's performance is not going to live up to the trade compensation in November of 2024 than I am that Terry isn't going to sign a contract extension, be in uniform, and play at a really high level. It's not even close. Now, if we get to training camp beginning and Terry isn't there, which may be a possibility, I still think a deal will get done, and it'll get done in time for training camp. Would I be, more concerned? More concerned, but still not hysterical. We see this happen in the league all the time. And I mentioned yesterday that older players, veteran players, on their 3rd deal, 4th deal, these tend to be the times in which things like this happen. I know the Ayuk thing got extended last year in San Francisco, and that was his first, big deal. And he's a much younger player, and Chase and Higgins, it's true. But the reason often it happens, for a longer period of time, and you get more reports of frustration with older players like Hendrickson and now with Terry, off the reports from yesterday, is that it's not the easiest of deals to do, because he is going to go into his age 30 season. He's an excellent player, but he's not Chase. He's not Jefferson. And, so it's not like a no-brainer to give him top 3 money, which I'm guessing he's asking for, certainly in that 30 million plus range, probably the 32, 33, hoping it lands at 30. And the team is saying, you're really good. but Ayuk got 28 last year and he's younger, or Tyreek Hill's 31 and he's not making, 33, 34. So it's not the easiest, fit, but I don't think it's square peg round hole either. I think they'll work it out. Like I certainly think that this is going to get worked out. And I would bet money it happens before training camp begins, so that Terry enters year 2 and he enters without missing a day of training camp. He may miss mini camp, but I'm not concerned about that. It's Terry. He's built up the equity. He knows the offense. He's worked with his quarterback for a year. Here's where, the two sides, like if you were to say, well, who's got the leverage in this? Well, Terry does. Terry understands what the team is trying to accomplish this year in 2025. They're trying to win a Super Bowl. They are trying to win an NFC title. They're trying to first win 13, 14 games and win the NFC East, have a very high seed, if not the number 1 overall seed, and get to a Super Bowl. And Terry is a top 3 to 5 reason that they'll do it. And if you take away one of those top 3 to 5 reasons, well, you diminish your chances. This is not a team that went 7-10 and had a quarterback that kept growing and, we feel good about the quarterback, but we're still not sure. And so year 2 is going to be about the quarterback again. And by the way, that would still give Terry leverage, right? Because you'd want him, the quarterback, to have his best receiver. No, we're talking about a team that went 12-5, won 2 road playoff games, 60 minutes from a Super Bowl, that traded picks, 8 of them, for 3 different players. Marshawn Latimore, Deebo Samuel, and Laramie Tunsil to try to win today. Now, the good news is all of those moves also came with some long-term, no long-term give. They Tunsil's going to be a part of this thing for several years, and Latimore hopefully will be. Deebo may only be here for a year. If he plays really well, I'm sure he'll want to hit the open market. But he's got some leverage here, and I'm sure he's trying to exert it, and I'm sure the team will eventually get to a number that makes sense. I think the good news too, look, this could be from the team standpoint, an advantage, and that is they're not working with someone who is unreasonable. They're not working with diva wide receiver guy. This guy is all about team. Terry, for those of you who don't know, makes $23.2 million a year. He'll turn 30 on September 15th, so right at the beginning of the season. The 23.2, which was off the extension in 2022, ranks 14th, I think it is, among wide receivers. So he's clearly underpaid. But to get into the top 3 in the league, that's a $34 million a year number. I would bet he's asking for it, and I would bet the team thinks he's probably closer to like DJ Moore at $28 million. T. Higgins, the $28.75 million. Brandon Ayuk's at $30 million. I bet they'll settle on something that pays Terry like $30 million a year and makes him a top 6, 7 paid player in the game, which, of course, today's overpayment, and I'm not suggesting that would be an overpayment, is tomorrow's bargain. It always works out that way in the NFL. And so they've got the space. I would imagine years are a part of this conversation as well because of his age, and because, they don't want to be paying Terry, let's just say in 28 and 29, 28 in particular, when they've got to get Jaden signed, or 27 in particular, let's say year 3, year 4, 27, 28, when Jaden is going to be a big number. There's some of that thinking as well. So they're going to have to figure out how to front load it more likely than back load it. But that's where you get into the years discussion. So I think it happens. My level of concern about Terry McLaurin being a part of this team under a contract extension is on a scale of 1 to 5, 0 to 5, 0 being not concerned at all, to 5 being super concerned, I'm at a 1. I'm at a 0.5, actually. That's where I am. I think it'll get done. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Your level of concern and anything else you'd like to add to the Terry McLaurin conversation. 0, you're not concerned at all. 5, you're very concerned. And you can weigh in like other emailers and people on Twitter have with your feelings about the organization. There seem to be some angry feelings towards the organization that they've made Terry frustrated. That happens in business, happens in contract conversation. Look, do I think there's a chance Terry could just play out his final year on his deal and become a free agent in 2026? I don't think that chance is very high at all, but I certainly think he's going to play for Washington in 2025. He doesn't have a choice. I mean, he's not going to sit out. I don't think he's going to sit out.